and they asked that we have one person kind of be the contact for when he was coming into town, and so that ended up being me, and so that was fun, that was knowing that we also because we knew that the celebrity that Michael was, for him to just come through the main gate would be difficult. He was, as you can see, how many of the fans who wanted to be around him. It was still that way when Jeffrey was playing here. So we actually got NCAA waiver to allow him to have a special parking spot in the tunnel loading dock area there at the assembly hall. And so he would call me the day that he was coming, say, "Hey, I'm coming to the game." And then he would call I'm about 10 minutes out. And so he would call me. And so I would usually walk down and let the folks at security know that Michael was 10 minutes away and they could be prepared for when he came in and where they would park him when he came in. And I usually had his ticket. So he would come in, I'd hand him his ticket, and then he'd come kind of in. And at that time, the player parents sat in the end zone in the old configuration. And so he could come up the tunnel and just kind of walk right in and sit in the bleachers with the other parents. And then when the game was over, he would kind of quietly, usually with a few seconds left or right at the buzzer, just kind of escape out and head home. So I can tell you that every time that when his name would pop up on my phone, your heart skips a little bit of a beat when somebody who was the most famous athlete in the world, right, the most recognizable athlete in the world, would call. That was kind of a make your heart skip just for a second, and then you just handled our business. So it always made for an interesting time when he would come.
What was it like, getting a phone call from him and then to the first time you actually saw him in person?
Yeah, well, he had come down with Jeffrey before the season started, so I had a chance to quickly meet him before. But at that first game, he knew who I was, and so he knew I'd be there waiting for him. And sure enough, it was cordial, quick. I mean, it wasn't like we sit there and hung out and talked for a long time, but it was small talk on the way up to the seat. And then then the game would start. And he wouldn't get there very early. Normally he would get there right at game time or right after it started, so that it wasn't too much fanfare when he came in. We also had, during Jeffrey's time, we played at the Maui Invite in Hawaii. And Michael came out to watch the games there. And so we worked with our ticket office, worked with the folks at the Maui Invite, and in our seating area, we actually created a little area for Michael to sit, where he could have a little bit of a buffer zone from fans around him. And he wore his Illini shirt, and he enjoyed his time in Maui. And but that was kind of a special deal, when Michael shows up with an Illinois shirt on at the games, and watching his son, play on the team. And so that was a special deal. And having someone like myself who grew up watching the games and following those teams, I realized how special a moment that was, and how that wasn't something that happens very often to. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll start over again with that one. Being someone who followed the team, the Bulls, through that period, and knowing the championships and how popular Michael was, and knowing he was really the greatest player of all time, it wasn't lost on me that how special a moment that was to be able to meet with him and talk to him for even maybe a short moment. But I just tried to play it as a professional. I didn't get all fanboy on him and ask for autographs and do pictures and stuff, because it was our job to make him feel comfortable when he was on our campus, and he was really there as a father, and that was our job, was to make him feel comfortable and enjoy his experience there, so he would come back.
What did you have to do as far as maybe some kind of crowd control things or media availability? I'm sure a lot of people probably wanted to talk to him and get autographs from him. How did you control some of those things?
Well, luckily, our parents, the other parents of the players, really treated him and understood what Michael and who Michael was, and treated him just like another parent. And so there wasn't a lot of ogling and autograph hounds in that group. They treated him like another parent. And they knew he was there to watch his son play. Um, I did get a lot of media interviews from a lot of our media who were at the games. But part of my job was to say, Michael just isn't interested in doing those. Everything that he did would have to be set up through SD Portnoy, and SD wasn't at those games, right? And so, but my job there was to be a little bit of a buffer between, and just politely say, listen, Michael, nothing against you guys. He's just here to watch his son play and really doesn't want to do media stuff. And so that's what we did. Where those seats were located, there was a wall, some space there. So the people who sat at the very bottom of what was called A section at the time, and where he was seated, there was a little space there. So it wasn't like people could really get to him. Our goal when he came to our games was that he could be just like a dad who was coming to watch his son play, come in, enjoy it, and then be able to leave without being hounded. And I think we accomplished that.
Do you have any fun stories or any kind of fun interactions that you two maybe had in the time that you worked with him?
So one time, as school got started in the fall, really before the season got started, the Today Show at NBC contacted us to try to set up an interview. I think they've been trying to set up an interview with Michael for a long time, and he declined. Their hook for the story was, your son's playing college basketball. You're the greatest player of all time. We want to talk to you and Jeffrey about what it's like to watch your son play, and then what's Jeffrey feel like playing at this at a school, at a Big Ten school, but also having a father like yourself. And so it took several weeks to really kind of pull all this together, to coordinate this thing. Matt Lauer came to Champaign. Today they brought a whole crew in. And Jeffrey was already here, but Michael agreed to drive down for the day. And so we set up a place at Ubben in the practice facility for where the interview would go. And it was pretty early. I think it was like at 9 o'clock, or it was fairly early. It seems to me the fairly early start for the interview. But Michael, he had a red sports car, rolls into the parking lot there. I'm pretty sure he had a cigar, and we see that a lot in the documentary, right? The Last Dance. He likes his cigars, and so Michael got out, and they had a chance to do the interview. And I think it was a nice story. It was a nice story. It was good for Jeff. It was good for us. I'm sure NBC loved it because it was Michael Jordan. He wasn't doing many interviews at that time. So at the end of this whole interview is done, he gives me what's the best way for me to get back to the interstate? And so this is where I stepped in, and I could give him directions. And I had to send him down St. Mary's Road, which was before it was repaved. So there was kind of a rough road. I said, I hate to send you down here, but the easiest way out is just go down St. Mary's Road, take a left on Lincoln Avenue, and it'll take you right to the interstate, and then you're heading north. So he gave me the thanks, my friend. And so when he's called me his friend, I really felt like we were really tight. Knowing reality is that, I was just there to help facilitate things. But I can remember, there went his car, down the road, and off he went. So, it was disappointing that Jeff transferred for his senior year. He went to Central Florida for his last year. I was looking forward, because I think Jeff was probably going to get on the floor a little bit more as a senior. And I think Michael probably would have come to a few more games. I might have hit him up for an autograph during that last year. But still having him through here, various times during those 3 years was fun, is exciting. And, we hope that Michael enjoyed his visits here.
Yeah. I think that's so funny. Even the greatest basketball player of all time needs directions.
He needed directions out of here. This was,
He's just
before we all had our GPS, our phones and stuff. He just wanted to know how to get the heck back out of town back to Chicago. In 1990, would have been, I think, the 89-90 season. The Bulls played an exhibition game here and in Champaign before the season started. And we had a pretty good team. In fact, Kendall Gill was a senior that year. Steve Bardo was a senior that year. And Kendall, obviously, being a Chicago guy, idolized Michael. And so we helped arrange for a photo with Kendall and Michael after they got done, out of the locker room. But my job that night was to deliver stats to the locker room, and so I had a stat page, and I ran it down to the locker room, and I walked in. The only two guys in the Bulls locker room was Michael Jordan and Stacey King, and so they each wanted a stat sheet. And that's the one time I asked Michael, could you sign my one of these stat sheets for us? And he gave me an autograph on a stat sheet. So I still have that somewhere. But that was my one time that I did that. But I will tell you, watching The Last Dance has been amazing. The worst part of the whole thing is it's going to end this weekend. I wish there was more of it because I can't get enough of just the raw honesty behind the scenes stuff. I think it's terrific. And the type of competitor that Michael is, it really shows. And the fact that how he wanted to bring along his teammates to championship level has been real interesting to watch. So I wish we had more of it.
Yeah. And I feel like with The Last Dance, a lot of people like it because it humanizes Michael Jordan a little bit. Do you feel like maybe you kind of got that beforehand, just being able to see him in a situation where it wasn't, I'm watching him on TV or I'm watching him play a basketball game?
Yeah, I think being around him in some of those situations does humanize people, and you do realize that they're just people. And I've been fortunate to be among a lot of people, high profile people during my career, and most people are just regular folks who want to be treated just like you and I. And you can talk to them, and they'll respond the same way. It's just a guy like Michael, who was the most recognizable person in the world at that time, probably, is a little different level. And so he understood what his situation was. He understood how people reacted to him and the impact he had on other people. But I hope that he appreciated the fact that when he came, we treated him with respect and just tried to make it as comfortable as possible for him to enjoy watching Jeffrey play.
For sure. How long have you been working with DIA?
So, since the late 80s, I started as a student and a grad assistant in 1987. I was a grad assistant in that year, so the fall of '87. So I've been around the department for a long time, and so I was very young in my career when Michael's team, when that Bulls team played here for that exhibition game. So I was still kind of a fanboy at that time.
Then you grow up. How many games did he come to maybe in total over the course of that 3 years?
It was a handful. I'm trying to think. It wasn't a lot. I mean,